BBI report comes at a time when Kenya's economy is on a rough patch. Businesses are downsizing and laying off staff in large numbers, and the government is grappling with a cash crunch, which has translated into a large pile of pending bills. The BBI report looks at fixing the economy, and Julian Samboko now takes us through how it proposes to do that.
Kenya's economy is increasingly shouldering the burden of consistently rising expenditure and taxes on businesses and households, with the trickle-down effects to the common mwananchi hardly being felt, attracting the criticism that they are as tangible as a mirage. The BBI report proposes to remedy this anomaly through a raft of measures. First, it looks into the recurrent push and pull between the National Assembly and the Senate on the division of revenue, which has previously threatened to paralyze government operations and public service delivery. The BBI report proposes to increase the resources allocated to the counties by at least 35% based on the last audited accounts. For instance, the last audited accounts for the devolved units is financial year 2018-2019, where a total of 360 billion shillings were allocated. A 35% increase would have scaled up county allocations to 486 billion shillings, 29% higher than the actual allocation of 378 billion shillings approved through the Division of Revenue Act of 2019. To address the almost 90 billion shillings pending bills owed by county governments, the BBI report provides for every county to establish a fund known as Biashara Mashinani, through which the devolved governments will support micro, small and medium-sized businesses. The report also reinforces the provisions of the Public Finance Management Act on the allocations between the recurrent and development expenditure at the county level, prescribing that the stipulated 70-30 ratio with at least 30% of spending designated for development projects be strictly adhered to by county governments. How county governments will navigate the high wage bill is likely to be a challenge in this case. The BBI team in its finding recommends that the national government will draft guidelines on priority sectors to which private sector lending should be targeted. The segments to benefit from priority lending include SMEs, manufacturing, housing and export credit sectors. This would likely place commercial banks in a tight spot given that lending is based on risk profiling. With SMEs decrying an adverse business environment which has crippled operations, the BBI report proposes that government grants new micro, small and medium-sized businesses a tax holiday of 7 years in a bid to support their operations. This raises the question as to whether the country has the capacity to afford foregoing the revenues given KRA's consistent failure to meet its revenue targets. And the pressure for the taxman does not end here. The Taskforce proposes stronger efforts to broaden the tax base, even as the latest report showed that the first quarter of 2019-2020 saw KRA hit only 85% of its target revenue. To tame the country's 765 billion shillings wage bill, which gobbled up 52% of all tax revenue in the last financial year, the handshake-driven report proposes enforcement of the powers of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to enable it to rationalize compensation of public servants. And last but not least, the BBI report proposes that any parastatal carrying out functions similar to that of county governments should either be wound up or restructured. Every 5 years, Kenya's economy enters a slowdown owing to elevated political temperatures associated to general elections. Now, it is hoped that if the BBI report is adopted, it could help to cushion the country from the cyclicality attached to further electoral cycles. Julian Samboko, NTV.